Take my life, but I won't take yours. Now, is that weakness? Is that foolishness? Is that sentimentality that could get you and me killed? Or is there a law in it? A law. Not my opinion, not a mood brought on by a choir, but a principle as steady as 2 times 2. Now stay with me just for this moment. Don't run ahead to the battlefield. Don't rehearse the headlines. Can we even picture, describe, visualize a world in which conflict never ripens into slaughter? Is it possible to imagine that such a world could exist, not after we're all saints with wings, but here, in the atmosphere of your living room, your boardroom, your streets? Yes. Yes, it's possible to picture it. We are not beginning with strategy. We are not beginning with treaties, armies, or economics. We are beginning where all beginning is: consciousness. We who are sitting here now, within range of my voice, are not discussing politics first. We are discussing law, spiritual law. Because outer history is the printout of inner states. Don't forget this. We have been quoting it, and we will go on quoting it until it writes itself into you. There are no detached outer effects. All flows forth from consciousness. If that is true, and it is, then even war is not an accident of geography or the fault of a weapon. It is the fruit of a certain consciousness coming to harvest. Now let us for a minute accept that statement. If consciousness is causal, then the vow, "Take my life, but I won't take yours," is not a dare to evil. It is the withdrawal of our spiritual credit from evil. It is the refusal to keep feeding a machine whose only fuel is fear and hate. And when you cease to fund a machine, you don't have to dismantle every bolt of it. It winds down because its life is in the belief you have been lending it. That is law. You will say, but isn't resist not evil naive? Doesn't that mean lay down and let wolves roam? No. We will not dodge that question. We will walk right through it. Tonight, and through these hours together, we are going to take up that very command, the most offensive to the human mind, and ask whether it is a practical law or fairy tale. But do not expect me to flatter your fears. The human mind always wants to get safety from outside. Bigger locks, bigger armies, bigger alliances, because it is trained to believe its life is out there somewhere, to be protected, insured, defended. A human being can't help that. A human being can't help that. Until a new center is found. So here is our foundation. We begin not by arming effects, but by examining cause. We begin not by resisting darkness, but by standing where light is law. Is it possible? Yes. And if it is possible even in one of us, then it is possible in 2, and in a room, and in a city, and in a world. Because consciousness is contagious. We will prove it in ourselves, and we will let the proof speak louder than our fears. Now, let us begin. Now let us look directly at the engine that keeps war coming back. The recurrence that makes you throw up your hands and say, "Why again?" It is not hidden. It is as ordinary as the morning news and as intimate as your own thought. It is humanness. Getting. That's the word. Getting. The mind trained from nursery up to secure, to keep, to outdo, to be first, to be safest, to be right, to be vindicated. That is humanness. A human being can't help that. A human being can't help that. Until a new center is found. Watch it at the personal level. Compete, outshine, accumulate. Ensure, fortify, guarantee. Correct, argue, prove. Protect my standing, my account, my narrative. Then add a home to it, territory. At a payroll, advantage. At a grievance, vindication. In the office, get the edge. In the marketplace, capture share. In the family, win the point. In religion, build the bigger church, raise the bigger fund, have the truer doctrine. All right, scale it a little larger, and the vocabulary gets new clothing, but not a new heart. Sanction, embargo, threaten, surveillance, posture, encircle. Then, when the dance has gone on long enough, bomb, invade, annihilate. Same mind, bigger stage. Don't forget this. There are not two minds, one sweet for home and one savage for borders. It is one impulse wearing new uniforms as it grows. You say, but our cause is righteous. I know that song. We have all sung it. The getting mind loves righteous lyrics. It will wrap itself in flags and scriptures and photos of suffering children, and it will march. It will march. And if the aim in the secret heart is still win at any cost, secure mine, secure ours, even if yours must be broken, we are worshiping force. Not God. Force. We have merely perfumed the gunpowder. We have baptized the fist and called it virtue. That's uncomfortable. Yes, it must be, because we are diagnosing the disease at its root instead of powdering its face. Now, do not make the mistake of thinking this is a lecture about bad people out there. No, no. Within range of my voice, there is not a person who has not, at some season, paid homage to this getting God. We do it with small coins, resentments, subtle scorns, little advantages taken. And consciousness does not keep a separate ledger for pennies and millions. A seed is a seed, and in its season it bears after its kind. Getting bears conflict. In the home, cold wars. In the office, legal wars. In the nations, hot wars. There are no detached outer effects. If the tree is getting, the fruit must be strife. So where is the lever? If the root is consciousness, then the cure cannot be outer rearrangement, new borders, new alliances, new slogans. Those are pruning. You can prune until the bush is shapely and the fruit will still be bitter. The remedy is not a smarter strategy of getting. It is a new motor, giving. Not sentimental giving, not appeasing giving, but the spiritual function of pouring out from the recognition that God is the source and the infinity at the center of our being. When the center changes from acquire to bestow, from secure to serve, from conquer to bless, the outer picture cannot help but loosen its fists. That is where we are going. But first, let this much be settled. War keeps reappearing because the getting mind keeps reproducing itself, from the kitchen table to the council chamber. And it will repeat until a new consciousness is born within us. Now you come to a law. Not theory, not my preference. Law. There are no detached outer effects. All flows forth from consciousness. Don't forget this. We have been quoting it, and we will go on quoting it until it dislodges the last superstition from our thinking. If that is true, and it is, then war is not an event floating out there somewhere, visiting us like weather from a foreign planet. It is the printout of a consciousness that has accepted fear, accepted division, accepted the worship of power. And if that is so, then the lever is not in the newspaper, it is in the heart. Not sentimental, not idealistic. The only place the lever actually is. Immediately the human voice rises. Are you blaming victims? No, listen. This is not moral accusation. This is spiritual mechanics. A thermometer is not guilty because it rises when there is fever. It only registers a condition. Effects register consciousness, personal and, more often than we like to admit, collective. We are breathing one moral atmosphere. Families, nations, races, just as surely as we are breathing one oxygen. If an atmosphere of fear, of separation, of retaliatory worship has been cultivated, its fruits appear where they can. That is not a verdict against a suffering individual. It is a call to all of us, within range of my voice, to stop funding the atmosphere. The only immoral thing here would be to go on sowing one climate and then pretend surprise at the harvest.
Now, what does that mean on the ground? It does not mean sit in the road and pretend trucks are illusions. It does not mean throw away prudence. Wise action is not forbidden. Doors can be locked, children can be gathered to safety, policies can be drafted, and even a policeman's strong arm can interpose to prevent harm. But hear this: hatred and fear are not part of protection. Hatred and fear are the enthronement of the very power we hope to oppose. Resist not evil does not command us to abandon intelligence. It commands us to withdraw our spiritual credit from evil as reality, to stop bowing to it as power. The moment you do that, and you can do it this moment, the circuitry begins to change. You say, but if I do not harden my heart, won't I be overrun?
That is the old lie that life and safety are external, that supply is in iron and edge and speed. That is humanness, getting, disguised as prudence. The law states otherwise. Life flows from the center. Greater is he that is within you. Where fear is removed, the conductor is removed. Where hatred is absent, there is no circuit for violence to travel on. This is not poetry. This is physics of spirit. Touch a live wire with dry glass, and nothing happens. Touch it with wet flesh, and there is a shock. So it is with consciousness. Innocency insulates. Fear and hate conduct.
All right, if consciousness externalizes, then a consciousness that cannot be provoked into hatred, that refuses to honor evil with fear, short-circuits the cycle. It deprives war of its current. One in that stance begins to alter the atmosphere for many. Don't wait to see it on a headline. Begin where headlines are born, within. Take any one truth: I and the Father are one. God is my life. Love alone is power. And sit with it until it is more real to you than the shriek of your anxieties. Then act as wisdom directs, but refuse the inner consent to enmity. In the degree we do that, the outer picture must answer. It must. Effects cannot outlive their cause. Now let us take up this phrase that has offended the human mind for 2,000 years. Resist not evil. What does it mean? What does it not mean? Because if we are to practice a law, we must have it clear. First, what it does not mean. It does not mean approve evil. It does not mean invite cruelty. It does not mean abandon discernment, throw away intelligence, or refuse the protections of lawful order. No. Law is not anarchy. Love is not gullibility. Judges can sit without malice. Officers can act without hatred. Parents can lock a door without fear. Resist not evil does not command us to lose our wits. It commands us to withdraw our worship. That is all the difference in the world. Now, what is this resist? Listen carefully. Resist here is not the muscular act. It is the inner posture of acknowledging two powers and then pushing against one. The moment you brace yourself against evil as power, you have granted it a life derived from your fear. You have handed it your battery. You have said, "You are something, and I must meet you with equal something." And right there, the circuit is closed. Don't forget this. There are no detached outer effects. All flows forth from consciousness. If within you there are two powers, conflict must appear. If within you there is one power, silently adored and not opposed, conflict loses its air, its flame, its oxygen. All right. How shall we see it? We already have our witness in Scripture. Daniel. Not storybook, not miracle in time. Law revealed. In him innocency was found. That is the key. Innocency is not naivete. Innocency is the absence of hatred and fear. Therefore the lions could not. Not because God petted the lions into kittens for a night, but because a higher law nullified the ferocity at the level at which it could have touched him. The invisible law operated openly. It always does where it is given right of way in consciousness. And what gave it right of way? In him innocency was found. Now bring that down from the den to your living room, your street, your nation. Resist not evil means I will not set up a second power in my thought. I will not hate you. I will not fear you. I will not rehearse you as omnipotent in the theater of my mind. I will stand in one power. Call it God. Call it life. Call it love. And I will let that law govern my seeing and my acting. Then I act as wisdom directs, but never as vengeance dictates. And in that stance, the lions that seemed so certain begin to forget their appetite. The heat of the furnace cools. The edge of the sword dulls. Not because we have hypnotized ourselves, but because effects cannot outlive their cause. You will say, but is that practical? The world loves that word, practical. Now listen. The issue is not what the world calls practical. The issue is what law calls effective. When did 2 times 2 consult a pole? When did gravity ask your opinion? If spiritual law states that hatred conducts and innocency insulates, then efficiency, true efficiency, is to withdraw the current. Refuse the inner quarrel. Deny evil spiritual authority. That is, resist not evil. Not surrender of intelligence, surrender of worship. And in the degree that we do it, even one of us within range of my voice, the invisible law begins its open work. Yes. Yes. You are already saying it silently, and some of you not so silently. But then the violent win. If I don't strike back, they'll take everything. All right. Let us not dodge it. Let us look it straight in the face. What is it exactly they can take? Name it. Your purse? Your property? Your position? Your reputation? Your freedom? Even, yes, this body's breath? Now let us for a moment accept that statement. Forms can be disturbed. Forms can be bruised. Headlines can smear. Locks can click. A human being can't help fearing that. A human being can't help that. Until a new center is found. Now to the law. God is the source of my being and the infinity of my being. Since I am one with my source, nothing can be added to me and nothing can be taken from me. All that the Father hath is mine, already mine. If that is true, and it is, then what is it that retaliation is supposed to protect? A pile of effects? A shadow on a wall? If life, supply, safety, honor are derived from the infinite within, fear-based striking back loses its justification. You cannot add to infinity with a fist, and you cannot subtract from infinity with a sword. greater is he that is within you. Don't forget this. There are no detached outer effects. All flows forth from consciousness. If within you life is external, fear erupts. If within you life is God, fear loosens. When fear loosens, the fuel of war is withdrawn.
But the violent will win. What is winning? There are two kinds. Outer victory that multiplies hatred and sows tomorrow's violence. Inner dominion that dissolves the need to destroy. The Christ state does not need an enemy to prove itself. My kingdom is not of this world, else would my servants fight. That is not passivity, that is definition. When you must defeat to be, you have confessed that your being is small and borrowed. When you can bless and stand and refuse enmity in your heart, you have confessed source, and you reign, even if the crowd does not cheer. Make it very practical. Watch the escalations we all know. A word on a family porch becomes a grudge. The grudge becomes a lawsuit. The lawsuit becomes a campaign to ruin. A horn on a street becomes a shout. The shout becomes a fist. The fist becomes a knife. A rumor in markets becomes a squeeze. The squeeze becomes sabotage. A posture among nations becomes sanctions. Sanctions become encirclement. Encirclement becomes the night sky torn with fire. Same fuel every time. Fear of loss. They will take my place, my face, my bread, my breath. And so the getting mind armors itself and calls the armor virtue. Now bring in the other atmosphere. A woman hears the insult and feels the rise, and then remembers, my honor is in God. It cannot be dented by opinion. She answers softly or not at all, and escalation dies unborn. A merchant sees the scheme, and instead of plotting a darker scheme, he stands in one power and tells the truth plainly. Perhaps he litigates, perhaps he does not, but he cannot hate. A patrolman steps between the weak and the violent with firmness, yes, but not with malice. His strength is clean and does not breed tomorrow's revenge. A statesman, rid of the fear that national life is kept by blood, refuses the thrill of brinkmanship. He can negotiate without capitulating and defend without dehumanizing. Inner sufficiency interrupts escalation. Take away fear, and the current cannot travel. Innocency insulates. So, will the violent win? If by win you mean parade for an hour with a trophy of ashes, perhaps. If by win you mean enter dominion, the peace that needs no enemy, the violent cannot even begin. They have already confessed poverty. They require your hatred to feel alive. Do not pay it. Do not lend them your current. And then, once fear of loss has even slightly loosened its grip within us, within range of my voice, we can look at the vow without romance, without bravado, as law. Take my life, but I won't take yours. Not because I am weak, but because my life is hid with Christ in God, and therefore cannot be taken. Yes, yes. That is the end of the shout. That is the end of the fuel. Now let us look plainly at this vow, not as heroics, not as a newspaper stunt, but as law. Take my life, but I won't take yours. What is it measuring? It is the final examination of whether we have accepted spirit as life. Can I value life so wholly? Can I recognize life as God so truly that I refuse to counterfeit life by taking life? That is the question. Not, am I brave? Not, will I impress history? But, do I know the source?
Because if God is life and the infinity of life, then to defend life by denying life is contradiction. It is humanness, getting, written in blood. And we who are within range of my voice are here to be done with contradiction. Now someone says, is there really a law in that? Or is it just noble failure? There is a law, not magic. Law. The same law that states there are no detached outer effects. All flows forth from consciousness. Hatred and fear are the oxygen of violence. They are the conducting medium. The vow removes the oxygen. The vow insulates. It refuses to validate evil as power. Therefore, the circuitry fails. You can watch it at 10 levels. The insult finds no echo. The rumor finds no buyer. The threat finds no theater. The propaganda finds no fear to glue itself to. They would stop dead in their tracks, not because angels push them back with hands, but because there is nothing in our consciousness to carry their voltage. Innocency is found, and the lions cannot. That is not poetry. That is the physics of spirit. All right, you say. But how could that ever matter beyond you and me? Very simply. Consciousness is contagious. Fear is contagious. So is peace. Within 30 days, if 10, 100, 1,000 in a city take this vow honestly in the secrecy of their being and practice it, inside 30 days, a new phrase will be heard at kitchen tables. We don't have to hate them to be safe. Inside 60 days, it will be in pulpits and editorials. Protection without enmity. Inside 90 days, it will be in councils. No, we will not kill to prove we live. Why? Because ideas do not originate in printing presses, they originate in consciousness. And an atmosphere of non-hatred will not carry incendiary sparks. Propaganda cannot stick to minds not governed by fear. It slides off. There is no adhesive. Do not wait for a movement with a name. Do not wait for a banner. Begin. One truth is enough. God is life. Practice it until killing becomes unthinkable, not by argument, but by nature. Practice it until revenge feels as foreign as theft. Practice it until even firmness, when required, is clean of malice. Then, because there are no detached outer effects, the public climate shifts. Merchants speak differently. Police act differently. Statesmen decide differently. The invisible law begins to work openly. Now, I hear the next objection already forming, the one that sounds responsible. Isn't this dangerous? What about protecting others? We will not evade that. We will take it up, because love can be firm, and protection is holy. But we will not drag hatred along and call it duty. We will look at protection without enmity, and the law that makes it possible. Now we will not avoid the question that presses most on the conscience. What about the innocent? What about the child, the neighbor, the stranger at the mercy of a cruel hand? Does love stand by? No. No. Love does not stand by. Love acts. But hear me. Love acts from a different center. Protection is not first a technique. It is an atmosphere. The deepest protection is the climate of innocency, the refusal to consent to evil's inevitability, the refusal to confer upon it authority. Not denial of danger, denial of evil as law. There is a difference, and that difference is everything. All right, start here, within range of my voice. Protection without hatred is law. Love can act firmly. Love cannot hate. We are not commanded to become spectators. We are commanded to become non-conductors. Resist not evil does not forbid stepping in. It forbids setting up a second power in the heart. From that center, the forms of protection open. Interpose a body, raise a voice, call for help, shelter, evacuate, restrain, de-escalate, testify, submit to a lawful arrest if need be, accept loss if need be, yes, but without malice, without the inner verdict that the other is outside the life that is God. The action may be strong, the heart may not be poisoned. That is protection purified of vengeance. You have witnesses to this in your own memory. The teacher who stood in the doorway, not raging but unafraid, and the fight drained away. The parent who took a child into the house and locked the door, calm, clear, without cursing the street. The officer who separated combatants with firm hands and clean eyes. No contempt, no heat, just law. The judge who sentenced, yes, but did not spit hatred into the sentence. Law without venom, strength without enmity. In each case, the atmosphere, not the arm, was decisive. Don't forget this. Hatred conducts. Innocency insulates. That is not poetry. That is the physics of spirit. Now bring in the pillar we have been erecting. Getting or giving. False protection is getting. Seeking my safety by making someone else unsafe in my heart first, then in my act. True protection is giving. Of courage, of shelter, of bread, of time, of mediation, of presence, of listening so deep that a quarrel loses its fuel, of standing so steady that a crowd forgets its taste for blood. Giving includes the costly gift of refusing to dehumanize the very one who threatens. You may restrain him. You may remove the weapon. You may bar the door. You may appeal to law. But you will not pay him the coin of hatred, because that currency buys tomorrow's war. How shall we test ourselves in the moment? Ask, from where am I acting? Fear of loss or confidence in source? If it is fear, pause one breath and return to one truth, any one. God is my life. I and the Father are one. Love alone is power. Let it settle the atmosphere, then do the wise thing required. You will find that clarity opens forms you could not have plotted, a word that cools, an exit you had not seen, a strength that is clean. Now I hear the next murmur. But I don't know enough truth to hold that line. That's not true. There isn't anybody within range of my voice who needs a library. One truth is sufficient when practiced. And that is where we are going next. How to begin, not as saints with wings, but as men and women who will use one truth until it becomes the climate in which we live. All right. Let us finish with this discouragement that creeps in on little cat feet and then roars like a lion. I don't know enough truth to live like that. That's not true. There isn't anybody within range of my voice who lacks one statement they can practice. Not one. Your trouble is not shortage of truth. Your trouble is surplus of fear and habit. Now let us for a minute accept this law we have been repeating. There are no detached outer effects. All flows forth from consciousness. If that is so, and it is, then the requirement is not more information, it is a different atmosphere within. And one truth lived generates an atmosphere. Listen. Truth is one. It cannot be multiplied, and it cannot be divided. When did 2 times 2 ever become more 4 because you remembered it in Latin? 4 is 4 in any language. So it is with spiritual truth. I and the Father are one. That statement, understood and practiced, contains the whole kingdom. Greater is He that is within you. In that, every promise of protection is embedded. There are no detached outer effects. Hold that, and every sensible fear loses its claim to rule your conduct. Don't think that if you could only collect 99 more sentences, your treatment would be 99 times stronger. No. No. The only necessary thing is the willingness to practice the one you have until it becomes your climate. What is practice? Not parroting. Embodiment. Taking the statement into the very place where you feel heat, fear, grievance, eagerness to strike, and holding to it quietly until the temperature drops. Make up your treatment. Any one. I and the Father are one. Or, God is my life. Or, greater is He that is within me than whatever appears without. Or, if the mind begins to run to headlines, there are no detached outer effects. All flows forth from consciousness. Therefore, I refuse to be a conductor for hatred. That is a complete treatment. Short, sufficient, lawful. Now you see the shift from accumulating to embodying. The getting mind wants to get more truths, more quotes, more proofs, more stories. Stack them like sandbags against the flood. The giving consciousness pours one truth into the moment and lets it govern. Give it your consent, your attention, your breath, and do not argue. You will find that the one truth begins to permeate. It leaks into your words. It changes your look. It slows your hand. It interrupts the rehearsals of anger before they become sentences, before sentences become votes, before votes become policies, before policies become violence. Don't forget this. If the battleground is consciousness, then victory is the moment before expression, the instant when cause is chosen. So establish a way. We need a repeatable way, because fear and hatred are repeatable visitors. Morning and night, yes, but also in the doorway, at the phone, in the car, at the headline, in the meeting. Stop one breath. Touch your one truth. Wait 3 seconds. Give it room. Then, speak or act as wisdom directs, but without enmity. Do this not once, but again and again, until the truth you have practiced is no longer recited, it is the air you breathe. And having settled this, we can take up the drill itself, the inner exercise by which we end the rehearsal of war within, so the newspaper never has to print it without. All right, here is the drill. We are not waiting for the cannon. We are meeting the match before it touches the fuse. Where does war begin? Not at the border, not in the council. It begins the instant an image of enemy forms in you. The body tightens, the jaw sets, the breath gets shallow. The mind starts to rehearse. I will say this. I will post that. I will cut them off. I will show them. The tongue sharpens a sentence. The hand reaches for send. That is the battlefield. Don't forget this. There are no detached outer effects. All flows forth from consciousness. If you break the circuit there is nothing to report tomorrow. Step 1. Stop. One breath. Interrupt the motion. Be still. Even 3 seconds will do. Do not trust the first surge. It is always humanness, getting, securing, conquering. Step 2. Recognize the temptation. This is not prudence. It is the old worship of two powers. The mind is trying to make evil real and then push against it. See it. Name it. Ah, here is the urge to resist evil as power. Step 3. Withdraw consent. Speak to the atmosphere in you. No, no, this hate is not mine. This fear is not law. God is the only power. God is my life. God is their life. Repeat it. Again. Again. Not loudly. Truly. You are cutting the wire. You are removing the conductor. Step 4. Rest in the presence. Rest does not mean blankness. It is alert surrender. It is saying, Christ within, decide. Not adrenaline, not pride, not the mob in my blood. Keep still until the temperature drops. 5 seconds, 15, a minute if needed. You will feel the unclenching. You will feel the storm lose its wind.
Now act as wisdom directs. Perhaps you speak, softer than planned. Perhaps you write, simpler than drafted, without the poison. Perhaps you step away and let the embers go cold. Perhaps, yes, you intervene, but without spitting fire, clean and firm, with no residue of contempt. The action is not the proof. The atmosphere is. Hatred conducts. Innocency insulates. If innocency is found in you, the lions cannot, whether those lions are a rumor, a slight, a push in a crowd, or a policy on a desk. Make this a drill, not an emergency trick. Doorway, phone, steering wheel, inbox, meeting, headline. Each time the spark appears, run the sequence. Stop. Be still. Recognize. Withdraw consent. Rest. Then act. And keep the language simple. Always the same if you like, because one truth is sufficient. No, no. This hate is not mine. This fear is not law. God is the only power. God is my life. God is their life. In that cadence, your pulse will learn a new rhythm. Your face will soften. Your words will lose their blades. Now listen. You think this is private. It is not. Consciousness is contagious. Your 3 seconds of surrendered heat lower the temperature in the room. Your refusal to hate deprives a whole chain of events of its first link. The newspaper does not print what never happens. The policy is never proposed because the meeting never turns hot, because the memo was never written, because the heart that would have written it found no second power to push against. One quiet soul becomes weather. That is how the invisible law begins to work openly. And we, within range of my voice, can begin this weather now. Now let us widen the lens. You have been faithful in the inch. 3 seconds, one truth, the unclenching. Now see how inches become climate. We are not isolated bulbs blinking in separate rooms. We are a shared current. Consciousness is not a private hobby. It is atmosphere. What you adore, fear, hate, or love in the secrecy of your thought becomes thinkable, easier, closer, in the house, the office, the city. Don't forget this. There are no detached outer effects. All flows forth from consciousness. When enough of us withdraw consent from hatred as power, the public air thins of its poison, and the match looks for oxygen and finds very little. You know this already in small ways. One calm person walks into a heated room and does not argue the temperature. She changes it. No, she does not say much. She simply refuses the second power, and tones drop. A single honest salesperson in a team that jokes about shading truth quietly tells the truth and keeps telling it. Within a quarter, the jokes sound tired. Within a year, the ethos has moved. Targets still matter, but deceit does not feel like an option.
One fearless consciousness meets a rumor-triggered rush on the market or the store and stands in one power. He buys what he needs and does not hoard. A neighbor sees and relaxes. Two more follow. The shelves are not stripped and the headline never appears. Private peace becomes public climate.
Now translate this into civic giving. Cast your bread upon the waters. The getting mind asks, what can I leverage? The giving consciousness asks, what can I sow? Sow calm by listening across your preferred line without humiliation. Sow truth by refusing inflammatory speech, not because you like the other argument, but because you will not pay hatred's fare. Sow equity by refusing to profit from outrage, no clicks, no ads, no fundraisers that stoke contempt. Sow repair by giving your time, your craft, your purse to healing work instead of to campaigns that weaponize fear. Penny, nickel, dime, hour, meal, mediation, testimony, cast them. They return multiplied as climate. And hear this clearly. This is not partisan. We are not taking sides in the world's costume party. Left suit, right suit, hawk, dove. Fear is bipartisan. Humiliation runs on both tickets. Revenge circulates in every ideology that worships force. We are addressing root, not leaf. If you will sit very still, you will notice the same old two-power worship trying to recruit you with a new flag and a new vocabulary. Smile at it. Withdraw your consent. Then act as wisdom directs. Vote, serve, advocate, arbitrate, with a clean heart. But how far can this go without pressure? As far as law goes. Ideas do not need fists. They need atmosphere. When a critical measure of us refuses inner violence, broadcasters cannot sell rage at the former price. Politicians cannot peddle panic on the old margins. Merchants find that honest copy is the only language customers believe. Police culture, corporate culture, school culture, each breathes the air that you and I consent to. Consciousness is contagious. Inner nonviolence is a public act even when done in silence. All right, do not romanticize it. Climate is made by weather that repeats, and repetition costs. It will cost you the thrill of hating. It will cost you the easy belonging that comes from despising the other tribe. It will cost you opportunities to cash in on fear. And that cost is precisely the seal that this is not sentiment, but law. Next, we will face that cost openly and consecrate it, because only what we are willing to pay for can become our atmosphere. All right, we said climate costs, and now we must say what it costs. It is not the small comforts. It is the ego's favorite idol, the right to retaliate, the right to have the last word, to return hurt for hurt, to prove yourself by another's loss. That is the altar. And do not dress it up as prudence or strength. It is the worship of a second power. Now let us for a minute accept this. The teaching is not comfortable because it asks for the end of that worship. Resist not evil is not a slogan. It is the surrender of the inner blade. Yes, yes, that blade exists in respectable hearts too, in ours, polished by cause and covered by principle. Lay it down. Do not misunderstand. We are not seeking suffering. We are not cultivating virtue by bruises. We are yielding the personal sense of life that imagines itself kept by sharpness, kept by quick answers, by reputational wars, by the quiet plotting of how to make them feel what we felt. We offer up the false self that needs enemies to be itself. That is the sacrifice. Not blood, not theatrics. Surrender. the me that must defend by killing, even if the killing is only with the tongue or the pen or the vote. Offer that up. He that saveth his life shall lose it. He that loseth his life for my sake shall find it. Lose what life? The little frightened life that must get, must secure, must conquer. Find what life? The life that is God, already yours, which requires no enemy to be. And now the hidden bargain must be brought to the light. I will be spiritual as long as it doesn't cost me. As long as it doesn't cost reputation, position, profit, the esteem of my tribe, the thrill of the well-aimed retort. That is the clause we sign in invisible ink. Tear it up. Tear it up now, because the very moment of cost is the moment of transformation. Don't forget this. There are no detached outer effects. All flows forth from consciousness. Nonviolence becomes law only when it is paid for with the surrender of retaliation inside one's own being. Until then, it is a posture, and the war current still finds a wire in us. The minute it costs and you pay, quietly, inwardly, the circuit breaks. Daniel in him innocency was found. That is why the lions could not. Innocency means the wire is gone. How do we consecrate the cost? Not on a stage, in the secrecy of your own being. Go home and lay out the idol plainly, the specific person or party you reserve the right to hate, the grievance you are unwilling to release, the scenario in which you have already decided to repay. Put it on the altar, right there in thought, and say, no. This hate is not mine. This fear is not law. God is my life. God is their life. I surrender retaliation in thought, word, and act. Then be still long enough to feel the protest rise and pass. There will be a tremor. Let it come. Let it go. The cost paid will leave a cleanliness behind you have not known before. Do it again tomorrow, and again. Climate is weather that repeats. What do we receive in this exchange? Everything we really wanted in the first place. Dominion without an enemy. Strength without hardness. Protection without malice. And more. Something we must now name clearly for our closure. The atmosphere called the Christ. Not a person, but fearless consciousness that knows no second power, cannot hate externals, and therefore cannot produce war. In that light, the cause of war is removed, and effects cannot outlive their cause. Now, let us turn and behold what that Christ is, and why, in its presence, the dream of two powers dissolves. Now let us look at what we have named, because names without definition are idols. Christ is not a person to admire and copy in costume. Christ is a state of consciousness that cannot hate externals and does not fear them. Not a robe, not a century, not a nationality. A consciousness. I and the Father are one. That is the atmosphere. Greater is He that is within you than he that is in the world. That is the courage. Christ is the awareness of one power, so single, so sure, that the mind cannot be tempted into worshiping a second. In other words, Christ is fearless consciousness. Fearless of what? Of anything outside. Men, markets, microbes, missiles, headlines. And because it is fearless, it is hateless. The moment you are free of fear of a thing, you no longer need to resist it as power. You no longer need to hate it as threat. Now trace the law we have been laying stone by stone.
Don't forget this. There are no detached outer effects. All flows forth from consciousness. If we do not fear externals, we will not set up a second power called evil. And if we do not set up a second power, we will not resist it as power. If we do not resist it as power, we do not feed it with our belief. If we do not feed it, it cannot externalize through us. The war mind loses its supply line, its oxygen of fear, its current of hatred, its commerce of retaliation. Innocency is found, and the lions cannot. Christ consciousness is not a dreamy halo. It is the end of the conductor in you, and so the voltage of violence finds no wire. Effects cannot outlive their cause. Withdraw the cause, and the parade stops, not because we shouted at it, but because there is no drumbeat left in us to set its pace.
All right, bring this down to this room, to these breaths, to those within range of my voice. If we can accept even a measure of this, in the degree that we attain even a taste, yes, we here could stop all future wars. Where? First, the one we sponsor inwardly. The rehearsals, the arguments composed for the absent, the contempt crafted for the other party, the hunger to humiliate. Stop that war, and you have cut the first convoy. 2. The neighborhood war, the rumor, the clique, the feud. 3. The city. 4. The state. Consciousness is contagious. You will not live long enough to chart every ripple, but law will carry them. So go home. If necessary, sit up all night and fight it out within your own being, not with the world, with your own consent to a second power. Until you can say without drama and without hatred, quietly and truthfully, take my life, but I won't take yours. Say it not as theater, not as dare, but as atmosphere. And hold one truth while you sit. No, no. This hate is not mine. This fear is not law. God is the only power. God is my life. God is their life. Stay until the protest rises and passes. Stay until the hand unclenches and the tongue loses its blade. That is Christ beginning to be your climate. And then rest in a simple certainty. Not that the world will obey you, but that law will. Law is law. It is discoverable and livable. 2 times 2 does not quiver when threatened. Neither does the law that there are no detached outer effects. When Christ consciousness becomes our atmosphere, war loses its inner cause, and effects cannot outlive their cause. That is the final truth. That is the last truth. Now take it with you and live.